伙计，乖乖，起话脑壳，老子亲眼看到太早了一个，亲眼看到的啊！这是我怎么去了？缥缈到的，伙计，太早了。
3具尸体已经在这里躺了一个上午了，有的人已经是凌晨死的，到现在没有人来处理。然后医生、护士还有病人全部都在这种环境下面工作。这就是定点医院的现状，没有任何人管。刚刚找领导，没有领导，领导也解决不了。这怎么整啊？我受不了
Hello everyone, welcome to Neon Realist. What the hell is going on in China? It's a question I've been asking for a few days now, and I felt it's long past time that we talk about it. You know, while the mainstream media has been obsessed with the kabuki theater of impeachment, the real world, where things of actual consequence go on, it rolls on without the Washington Beltway press. In the real world, a modern industrialized nation has been ground to a screeching halt. Over 40 million of its citizens are now under the effect of a military-imposed lockdown. They cannot leave. As unfathomable as that might be to imagine, just think for a moment how crazy it'd be if President Trump suddenly announced that no one could get on a train, a plane, or use their private car to leave where they live, and it applied to everyone in Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. That is the scale of the more or less indefinite martial law that has been declared. It's centered in and around China's Hubei province. It is in Hubei province, in the city of Wuhan, population over 11 million people, where barely a month ago on December 8th, 2019, the first instances of symptomatic illness began appearing. People were reporting symptoms of fever, fatigue, a dry cough, shortness of breath, respiratory distress, pneumonia, kidney failure, and in the worst cases, eventually death. So most people that were admitted to the hospitals, they were showing stable vital signs, but their immune system would show decreased numbers of white blood cells, the leukocytes and the lymphocytes. And about a quarter of the patients, they would show severe symptoms. These were the people who had complicating and underlying conditions like high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, or diabetes. About 3 weeks later, China was telling the World Health Organization that this was a SARS-like illness and that they had source-tracked it to where many of the victims had in common the Huanan seafood market that I'm sure a lot of you have seen in reporting in recent days. And this is a place which is being described as the perfect petri dish for what is now called 2019 nCoV, or 2019 novel coronavirus. 2019 is the year of discovery, N stands for novel or new, and CoV for being in the corona family of viruses, CoronaViridae. Now, colloquially speaking, it's being referred to by some now as CARS, Chinese Acute Respiratory Syndrome. So after weeks of slow or no action, some people might say, China all of a sudden this week went from zero to break the glass, the shit has hit the fan mode. So as I mentioned before, over 40 million people are under currently a lockdown. Seems to grow by the hour, that number, by the way. And everything is more or less closed. I mean, I guess you can do that in a totalitarian communist state. I mean, what you can do apparently is you can declare that you're going to build a 1,300 bed hospital in 6 days. Now, China expects the hospital that they're throwing up on this site in Wuhan to be ready to accept patients on Monday, February 3rd, people. That's insane. In the United States, you couldn't even get a permit to build a gazebo in your backyard in 6 days. So, but anyway, I guess if the workers if they'll work 24/7, knowing that failure means a possible trip to the gulag, I suppose then miracles can happen. But seriously though, literally, only China has the manpower, the political culture, the tolerance for unsafe construction standards, and the sheer political will to accomplish such a monumental feat of engineering in the modern world. So, if there's one positive, I guess you could take from authoritarian communism, I guess that's it. Anyway, after exploring the upside of the Chinese communist system, it's time now to speculate if, like the situation in the Soviet Union back in the 1980s at Chernobyl, if perhaps the communist system played a role in this unfolding disaster to begin with. In a recent docudrama series by HBO titled Chernobyl, a big part of the narrative was to show how the rot and the corruption and the ideology that are endemic in totalitarian communist societies, how it led to the government at every instance either not getting the message that a disaster was happening, the right people, or worse, even if that information did reach up the hierarchy, how it was dismissed, downplayed, or outright covered up as against the interests of the state and the party. The men at Chernobyl, they knew there was a meltdown in progress, but their political superiors, no one wanted to be the one to report a problem. No one wanted to be the one to have to say there was a failure, and as a result, the problem continued to get worse and worse until the reality check of a body count and warnings that those affected might number in the millions if something wasn't done, finally forced the Soviet state apparatus to respond with an all-hands-on-deck effort to contain the nuclear disaster. Now, there is beginning to emerge here, in the case of 2019 novel coronavirus, the possibility that, like Chernobyl, the origin of this mess, and certainly the early stages of it, the problem was man-made. I mean, you heard me, manufactured. By now, most of you've heard the stories about the level 4 biolab located in Wuhan and the so-called conspiracy theory that the virus originated there. Now, that is what I'm talking about here, but it's not that simple. I'm not just coming here and telling you, because there's a protection level 4 lab there, that they just made the virus. And no, that's not what I'm saying. So when I first saw that story make the rounds a few days ago, I think even Tim Pool mentioned it in a video that he made a couple days back, and he's been downplaying it. Naturally, I found it interesting, but logically I thought to myself, hey, just because it's there doesn't mean it's connected. It's worth pursuing. So, over the past couple of days, I've seen new information that leads me to believe that the laboratories in Wuhan might possibly be involved. First off, this part of the story is not a conspiracy theory. There is, in fact, a laboratory conducting virological research in the city of Wuhan. There's actually 2 of them, but we're going to focus on one of them here. Local Wuhan television, as far back as 2015, broadcast reports showing China's most advanced virus research laboratory, and it's called, ironically enough, Wuhan Institute of Virology. Wow, very simple. This lab is the only declared site in China that is able to work with the deadly viruses. Now, Western intelligence agencies believe that there are, of course, more, but they also believe that the institute is tangentially linked to the PRC's covert biological weapons program. China, of course, they deny having any offensive program for bioweapons, but the United States State Department last year issued a report saying that the United States suspects China has engaged in covert biowarfare work. China claims that the origin of 2019 and corona is unknown. The director of the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention told Chinese state media on Thursday that initial signs indicate an origin in wild animals sold at the Huanan seafood market. That might technically be accurate, but let's take a step back and look at the big picture here. In an enormous, vast country, both in landmass and in population. Remember, China has the largest population on the planet, about 1.5 billion people just about. Of all the places this bug, 2019 novel coronavirus, shows up within a mile or two of the only publicly known virological research lab in the entire country. A lab which is known, this is not within doubt, this is not conspiracy, known to have worked with the parent strains and family of this virus. I mean, they've published their own papers on this work. This is not speculation. April 2017, a research team at the Wuhan Institute of Virology published an article titled "Novel Bat Adenoviruses with Low G+C Content Shed New Light on the Evolution of Adenoviruses." March 2019, another research team at Wuhan Institute of Virology. They published this paper, this title is going to grab you, "Rapid and Specific Detection of All Known Nipah Virus Strains Sequences with Reverse Transcription Loop-Mediated Isothermal Amplification." Now, what does all that word salad mean in that March 2019 report, seemingly about a Nipah virus, which is not coronavirus? Let's dive into their own introduction, and please pardon the scientific jargon. I promise afterward it's going to make sense why I'm reading this gobbledygook to you. Nipah virus, NIV, belongs to the family Paramyxoviridae and genus Henipavirus, which contains another 4 species: Hendrovirus, Cedar virus, Mojang virus, and Kumasi virus. Nipah virus is classified as a biosafety level 4 agent because of its high pathogenicity and mortality rate, which ranges from 40 to 100%, and causes fatal human encephalitis and respiratory disease when it spills over from its bat reservoir, pteropod fruit bats. It can also infect pigs and horses. Nipah virus infection was first described in Malaysia and Singapore in 1998-1999 after a massive outbreak of fatal encephalitis among humans, 283 cases, 109 deaths. Very mortal disease. Outbreaks of fatal encephalitis and respiratory disease attributable to Nipah virus have been reported in Bangladesh and India since 2001. 2006, 2009, 2011, 2012, it recurs. Nipah virus is enveloped by a filamentous nucleocapsids and has a single-stranded negative sense RNA genome of 18,246 NT, the Malaysia isolate, or 18,252 NT for the Bangladeshi isolate, which consists of 6 genes encoding 6 major structural proteins: nucleocapsids, phosphoprotein, matrix protein, fusion protein, glycoprotein, and large protein, or RNA polymerase. The first 12 nucleotides of the 5 and 3 genomic termini are highly conserved and complementary. There are 2 typical genotypes of Nipah virus: genotype M, containing the Malaysian isolates, Cambodian isolates, and some of Thai bat RNAs, and genotype B, containing Bangladeshi isolates, Indian isolates, and other Thai bat RNAs. The similarity between the genomes of the Bangladeshi and the Malaysian isolates is 91.8%. So I don't want to go on forever. It'll give you a headache if I do, but it's not really necessary for our purposes. Did you notice a certain simple 3-letter word that recurred in all that mess? The word is bat. The Wuhan Institute of Virology has just a few months ago, you've just heard me read the intro to it, they issued that report on their results taking synthesized genetic isolates from bats from all over Asia and inserting them into a PUC57 vector. Now, to keep things simple, PUC57 is a cloning vector. Now, please pardon the Wikipedia entry that I'm about to read or excerpt from, as I'm not a molecular biologist and I don't want to give you incorrect information. But a cloning vector is a DNA molecule used as a vehicle to artificially carry foreign genetic material into another cell where it can be replicated and expressed. A vector containing foreign DNA is termed recombinant DNA. Getting the picture here? So not only did this bat virus originate in a wet food market a stone's throw away from the only protection level 4 virus lab in all of China, this lab, which has been taking genetic isolates from more contagious strains of bat viruses, you saw that 40 to 100% mortality, such as Nipah virus, the 2012 strain that caused an outbreak in Malaysia and Singapore that killed 109 out of the 283 people who caught it, placing that into a cloning vector, PUC57. Now, I'm not drawing a direct line between that specific work in that they published that article for and 2019 novel coronavirus, but I just don't have anywhere near the background in molecular biology that would that kind of drawing that conclusion would require. But I think we're certainly starting to narrow the possibilities here, aren't we? Let's dive a little further into this. Here is the entry at the National Institute of Health showing the complete genome of Wuhan seafood market pneumonia virus isolate Wuhan HU1. I believe that's Wuhan human 1. That's the National Institute of Health entry for 2018 novel coronavirus. The National Center for Biotechnological Information has put out a phylogenetic tree showing the relationship of 2018 novel corona. Remember, they designated as Wuhan HU-1 in red there. The virus is shown to be related to 2 strains of bat SARS-like coronavirus that appeared in China in 2015 and 2017. It shows that it is also related to older bat SARS-like virus strains that appeared in 2004, 2009, and 2012. So how the hell could this new strain in Wuhan be higher up on the phylogenetic tree than its 2 closest branches, which it shares 99.3% of their genome or higher, but only appear 5 years later? Somehow, this bug, previously unknown to science, while its cousins there that share a common ancestor on the evolutionary terms, they're known to science for 5 and 3 years respectively. It's possible, but again, to my mind, just not likely, considering we're not talking about Ebola virus, marinating out in some equatorial jungle in Africa, like where Ebola is. I mean, these strains of bat virus, they're endemic to central China, not the remote wilds of the Congo. Prior to the outbreak, you could get on a plane in a major airport in the United States, and within many hours later, you'd step off a plane in the middle of Hubei province in China. You're not. I don't think you can do that. You can fly directly to the Congo. So you're telling me this thing hid in the middle of one of the most advanced civilizations in the world, in China, right there in the very place where they have the only lab in the country that works with those very same viruses, and has just this year published research where they were isolating more contagious strains of bat viruses and inserting their genetic product into cloning vectors? Here's the U.S. National Library of Medicine's BLAST tool, the basic local alignment search tool. When you input the Wuhan seafood market virus envelope protein and the bat SARS-like coronavirus envelope protein into the BLAST sequence comparison tool, you see a result showing a 100% match. If 2018 novel coronavirus is a naturally occurring mutant, how is the envelope protein 100% unchanged and intact from generation to generation when compared to viruses that were detected as long as almost 5 years ago? Now, I don't have the kind of expertise to answer these questions, but I really hope that people who do have that requisite expertise, that they start asking these questions. I might just be a dumbass rando layman talking out of his ass, but it sure seems like a whole lot of coincidences are just lining up here, with a new and completely unknown before virus that is highly infectious to humans and is highly communicable, just human to human. You got doctors now who were treating the disease just a couple weeks ago. One of them's already died, let alone come down with the illness. That this illness has a relatively long period of gestation in the host where, sometimes symptoms won't show for a week or more in a lot of cases. This is the perfect storm of a deadly virus that doesn't kill the host right away, lets them keep walking around infecting people for up to a week or two before they start feeling sick, and this just happens to appear within walking distance of the only declared protection level 4 lab in China, where they've published scientific articles detailing their work recombining DNA from multiple varieties of bat virus that cause illness in humans into a known cloning vector. Yeah, it's just a cold, right? That's all for this Neon Realist. If you want to help the channel, do me a favor. Hit like for this video, leave a comment below, mash down on the subscribe button if you're not already subbed to the channel, and click on the notification bell beside it. Put it on the all setting to, if you want to keep up with newer content. But if you want to contribute directly to the channel, toss your hard-earned dollars and yuan into the tip jar, follow the links below to Patreon, Subscribe Star, PayPal. If you watch this on BitChute, you can just click on the green tip pledge button on the video player. And thanks for watching.